There is a number that changes everything. Not a budget figure, not a missile range, not a warhead yield. It is a shipyard count. As of 2025, China operates more than 232 times the shipbuilding capacity of the United States. That single statistic explains almost everything that follows. Because what comes out of those yards, year after year, is not just steel. It is a navy being rebuilt from the hull up, one class at a time, faster than any outside observer predicted. In the space of roughly 2 decades, the People's Liberation Army Navy, the plan, has gone from a coastal defense force armed with Soviet hand-me-downs to the largest fleet on Earth by number of warships. Over 370 surface ships and submarines in active commission, and roughly 70% of them were launched after 2010. This is not a Navy that aged into power. This is a Navy that was engineered into it. What you are about to see is every major warship class the plan operates right now, category by category, deck by deck, hull by hull. Chapter 1. Carriers. The Iron Pagoda and its Children. The story of Chinese carrier aviation begins with a rusting Ukrainian hull and a cover story about a floating casino. In 1998, a Chinese company purchased the unfinished Soviet Kuznetsov-class carrier Varyag from Ukraine, claiming it would become a tourist attraction in Macau. It never went to Macau. It went to Dalian Shipyard, where Chinese engineers spent 14 years reverse engineering, rebuilding, and ultimately commissioning what became the Liaoning. She entered service on 25 September 2012, displacing 60,900 tons, and became the first warship to fly the PLA carrier Ensign. She operates in ski-jump configuration, meaning aircraft launch without catapults, climbing off a curved ramp at the bow. Her air wing centers on the J-15, the Flying Shark, a Chinese-developed fighter that traces its own lineage back to a Soviet Su-33 prototype Beijing acquired from Ukraine in the 1990s. Today, the Liaoning is primarily a training ship, a school for carrier doctrine, a platform where Chinese pilots learn how to land on a moving deck. But she was never just a trophy, she was a lesson. The second carrier learned that lesson fast. Shandong, commissioned 17 December 2019, was China's first domestically designed and built carrier. Her keel was laid in 2013. Her hull launched on 26 April 2017, and she entered South Sea Fleet service displacing roughly 50,000 tons, with room for an estimated 36 fixed-wing aircraft, plus helicopters. Same ski-jump launch system, but a revised island and a larger hangar. The gap between Liaoning and Shandong is not just 4 years. It is the distance between imitation and indigenous capability. Then Fujian arrived. Commissioned on 5 November 2025 at Sanya Naval Base on Hainan Island, the Fujian, designated CV-18, is something no Navy outside the United States has ever operated before. A supercarrier exceeding 80,000 tons fitted with electromagnetic catapults. Module assembly began at Jiangnan Shipyard in Shanghai in early 2018. The hull launched 17 June 2022. First sea trials on 1 May 2024. Commissioning 11 months later. Her air wing is a generational leap. The catapult-capable J-15T multi-role fighter, the J-15DT electronic warfare variant, the J-35 next-generation stealth fighter, and the KJ-600 airborne early warning aircraft. That combination, assisted by electromagnetic launch, means greater range, heavier payloads, and real fleet coordination over the horizon. With Fujian in service, China is now the second-largest operator of aircraft carriers in the world. Chapter 2. Destroyers. The fleet backbone and the ships that changed the math. The Type 055, NATO designation Renhai class, is officially called a destroyer by China. The United States calls it a cruiser. At 12,000 tons full load, 180 meters long, with a 20-meter beam, it is larger than America's own Ticonderoga-class cruisers. That classification dispute is not pedantic. It tells you exactly what the Type 055 is. The first of class, Nanchang, entered service in January 2020. By the end of 2022, 8 hulls were in commission, split evenly between the North and South Sea fleets. In 2025, 2 more from the second production batch, Dongguan and Anqing, entered service, bringing the active count to 10. Each Type 055 carries 112 vertical launch system cells, 64 forward and 48 aft, capable of firing HHQ-9 surface-to-air missiles, YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles, CJ-10 land attack cruise missiles, and anti-submarine missiles. 4 enormous Type 346 BAESA radar panels, estimated to be 40% larger than those on the Type 52D, watch every quadrant simultaneously. In December 2025, Chinese state media reported the first successful test launch of a YJ-20 anti-ship ballistic missile from a Type 055 at sea. A hypersonic weapon, fired from a surface ship at a carrier-killer range. Beneath the 55 inches scale but far more numerous, the Type 52D, NATO Luoyang III class. This is the workhorse of China's modern destroyer fleet. 7,500 tons, 156 meters, 30 knots. Armed with a 6.4 cell universal VLS, a Type 1000 130-11 barrel close-in weapon system, and 8 YJ-18 anti-ship missiles. As of 2026, 25 hulls are in active service, with 3 more launched and 6 still under construction. It has been built at 2 shipyards simultaneously, Jiangnan in Shanghai and Dalian Shipbuilding in the north, at a rate no other Navy matches for destroyers of this capability. Few people remember this one the same way. The Type 52C, NATO Luoyang II class, was China's first destroyer built around phased array radar. 6 remain in service. They entered the fleet from 2004 onward, carrying the Type 346 AAESA radar, the HHQ-9 surface-to-air missile in a distinctive fixed hexagonal launcher, and displacement around 7,000 tons. They were the proof of concept for everything that followed. 2 Type 51C Luzhou class destroyers remain active. An unusual design that paired a fairly conventional hull with a Russian-sourced S-300 FM long-range air defense system installed in 48 silo cells. They entered service in 2006 and 2007 at Dalian Shipbuilding, serving as a bridge between foreign-supplied air defense technology and China's own VLS programs. At roughly 7,100 tons, they are capable ships, but they were always a stopgap. The 4 Submarine-class destroyers, built in Russia and delivered between 1999 and 2006, are now the most visible reminder of how far the plan has come. Each displaces around 7,940 tons and carries the SS-N22 Sunburn, a supersonic anti-ship missile that had no Western counterpart when these ships arrived. They were China's crash course in modern anti-surface warfare. Engineers studied every system. The lessons fed directly into the YJ-18 and the VLS programs that now equip far more capable domestic hulls. The Submarines have been updated with VLS fits, but their days are numbered. And then there are the legacy hulls. The single Type 51B Luhai-class destroyer, Shenzhen, commissioned in 1999 at 7,000 tons. China's largest surface combatant of its era, notable for introducing sloped sides to reduce radar signature. 2 Type 52B Luoyang I-class destroyers. 2 Type 052 Luhu-class destroyers, China's first to use gas turbines. These are the final survivors of a generation that made the modern fleet possible. Chapter 3. Frigates and Corvettes. Mass Production as Strategy. The Type 54A is one of the most quietly successful warship designs of the 21st century. It entered production in 2008 and never stopped. Over 40 hulls in service, built at 2 yards simultaneously. Hudong Zhonghua in Shanghai and Huangpu in Guangzhou. At 4,000 tons and 134 meters, it is not a large ship, but it carries a 3-2-cell VLS for the HQ-16 medium-range surface-to-air missile, 8 YJ-83 anti-ship missiles, 6 torpedo tubes, a 76mm main gun, and 2 Type 730 close-in weapon systems. For a frigate, that is a serious weapons load. The Type 54A was the first planned frigate to give fleet escorts real area air defense capability. It is also the ship that proved China could sustain serial frigate production at scale, and that discipline showed in every class that followed. 2 original Type 054 Jiangkai the frigates remain in limited service, notable for a 100mm main gun with French design origins. They were the baseline. The 54A was the evolution. Then in 2025, the next generation arrived. The Type 54B, NATO Jiangkai III class, commissioned its first 2 hulls, Luohe and Qinzhou, that year. The 54B features an updated ASA radar suite, an expanded VLS cell count, and the HPJ 87 100mm gun in its latest configuration. Whether it enters full serial production at the rate of the 54A or serves as a proving ground for something larger will define the next phase of Chinese frigate development. Beneath the frigates, the corvette layer, the Type 56A NATO Jiangdao class is the smallest principal surface combatant in the plan. 1,300 to 1,500 tons, 90 meters, armed with 4 YJ-83 anti-ship missiles, a 76mm gun, torpedo tubes, and, critically, in the 56A variant, a towed array sonar that gives it genuine anti-submarine capability. The class entered service in 2013 and was produced at 4 shipyards at once. The final tally: 72 hulls built through February 2021. The 22 original Type 056 units without towed arrays were transferred to the China Coast Guard in 2021, leaving 50 Type 56A corvettes in PLA service. No other navy in the world has produced that many combatants of that capability in that time frame. Chapter 4: Submarines, Steel Beneath the Surface. Beneath it all, 73 submarines. That number alone makes the plan's underwater force the second largest on Earth, behind only the United States Navy. The strategic backbone is the Type 094 NATO Jin-class ballistic missile submarine, 9 hulls in active service, including the improved Type 94A variant. Each carries 12 submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Originally the JL-2, with a range around 7,400 kilometers. Now rearmed with the JL-3, a 3-warhead MIRV missile with an estimated range between 9,000 and 10,000 kilometers. From the South China Sea, a Type 94A armed with JL-3 missiles can reach targets across the continental United States. Submerged displacement is approximately 9,000 tons. These 6 submarines account for 12% of China's entire declared nuclear stockpile. Together, the 9 hulls represent China's sea-based nuclear deterrent, a capability the U.S. Department of Defense formally assessed as the first credible one Beijing has ever fielded. Hunting for other submarines is the job of the Type 093 family, NATO Shang class. 6 of the earlier 093 and 93A hulls are in confirmed service. The original 093 entered the fleet in 2006, displacing between 6,675 and 6,700 tons submerged, reaching 28 to 30 knots, and armed with 6 533mm torpedo tubes capable of launching YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles and YJ-82 weapons. The 93A introduced a longer, streamlined sail and acoustic dampening technology, derived partly from studying the Russian Kilo-class submarines China had already purchased. This one changed the equation. The Type 93B is a fundamentally different animal. It carries a pump jet propulsion system instead of conventional propellers, cutting its acoustic signature dramatically. Approximately 16 hulls are assessed to exist, making it the largest single production run of nuclear-powered attack submarines being built anywhere in the world right now. Several are already in service. Others are completing sea trials. China now operates an estimated 32 nuclear-powered submarines in total, a figure that in 2025 officially surpassed Russia's fleet, placing Beijing second only to Washington in nuclear submarine numbers. The conventional force is anchored by the Type 39A Yuan class and its variants, the 39B and 39C. Introduced in 2006, the Yuan class was China's first domestic submarine, equipped with air-independent propulsion, a Stirling engine system that allows it to remain fully submerged for extended periods without starting its diesel generators. That matters because a running diesel creates noise and exhaust that anti-submarine sensors can detect. With AIP, the Yuan class becomes far quieter than anything that came before it. Submerged displacement is approximately 3,600 tons, 6,533 mm torpedo tubes, anechoic tile coating on the outer hull. Over 20 hulls produced across the A, B, and C variants, with the 39C introducing further refinements to acoustic stealth. The design has also been offered for export as the Type S-20. The older Type 039 Song class, without AIP, remains in service but is being progressively retired. And the Russian-built Project 636 Kilo class submarines, acquired in the 1990s and early 2000s, linger in the East Sea Fleet in diminishing numbers. When Beijing bought those Kilos, they were the quietest submarines China had ever operated. Engineers spent years studying them. What they learned fed directly into the Yuan class. The Kilos served their purpose. Chapter 5. Amphibious Power, Crossing the Water in Force. No fleet is complete without the ability to put soldiers on a beach. The plan's amphibious force has been transformed more dramatically than almost any other category. The Type 071, NATO Yuzhou class, was the foundation. Construction began in 2006, and 8 hulls are now in commission, with 2 more under construction. At approximately 25,000 tons, the Type 071 is a full-size amphibious transport dock, carrying up to 4 Type 726 air cushion landing craft in its well deck, a battalion of Marines with armored vehicles, and 4 helicopters. The Type 726 LCAC, NATO Yi class, first observed at sea in 2007 and entering service from around 2010, is itself a notable platform. At 150 to 160 tons, capable of speeds exceeding 50 knots, it can carry 1 main battle tank or 4 armored vehicles and 80 Marines directly from the well deck to a beach, bypassing traditional landing zones entirely. The early Type 726 units used Ukrainian UGT-6000 gas turbines. Reliability problems slowed initial deployment. The Type 726A variant switched to the indigenous QC-70 turbine, derived from the WS-10 aero engine program, and production resumed. Also still in service for direct beach assault, the Type 72A and Type 0723 tank landing ships, NATO Uding-class variants. These are medium-sized LSTs, bow ramp ships, that drive directly onto beaches to unload main battle tanks and armored vehicles. The Type 0723 introduced a helicopter deck at the stern. The Type 72A added an internal tunnel connecting fore and aft decks for faster vehicle flow. First units entered service in the 1990s, and production continued into the mid-2000s. They are older, they are slower, and they remain operational. The Type 075 Yushin-class LHD is a different order of capability. 4 hulls in service, Hainan, Guangxi, Anhui, and Hubei. The fourth transferring to Zhanjiang Naval Base in January 2025 and receiving her pennant in May of that year. Each displaces between 32,000 and 36,000 tons. Full-length flight deck. Well deck for landing craft. Capacity for Z-8 and Z-20 helicopters. Type 05 amphibious infantry fighting vehicles, and a full Marine battalion. The Type 075 gave the plan a capability it simply did not have before 2021. The ability to project a large combined arms assault force from the sea, independent of fixed air bases ashore. But the Type 076 is something else entirely. The Sichuan, lead ship of the Yulon class, was launched on 29 December 2024 and completed initial sea trials in November 2025. At over 40,000 tons, 263 meters long, it is the first amphibious assault ship in the history of naval warfare to carry electromagnetic catapults, a twin-island superstructure, a stern well dock for 2 air cushion landing craft, and a full-length flight deck equipped with arresting gear. Its air wing is expected to include the GJ-11 and GJ-21 unmanned combat aerial vehicles, making it simultaneously an amphibious assault ship and a drone carrier. For close-in defense, it carries 3 Type 1130 CIWS turrets and 3 HHQ-10 short-range missile batteries. The Sichuan is not an evolution of the Type 075, it is a category of one. Chapter 6. Mine Warfare, Patrol, and the Forces Below the Radar. The weapons that sink the most ships in history are not missiles or torpedoes. They are mines. China has never forgotten that. With approximately 60 mine warfare vessels, the PLAN operates the largest mine countermeasures fleet of any navy in the world. The Type 081 and Type 81A NATO Wochi class are the primary minesweepers in that force. The first Type 081 was launched in 2006 and entered service in 2007, built by Fujian Shipyard in Shanghai. It displaces between 996 and 1,200 tons and is 66 meters long. Its primary sweep system uses an acoustic device that mimics the engine noise and mechanical signature of a surface ship, triggering acoustic influence mines to detonate at a safe distance. The Type 81A introduced a 30mm cannon in place of the earlier 37mm mount and a revised funnel design. A total of 14 Type 081 and 81A units are in service. Several of the 81A hulls also function as motherships for the Type 529 remotely operated minesweeping drone, giving the PLAN an unmanned mine clearance capability that reduces crew exposure in contested lanes. The Type 082 and its successor, the Type 82-2, NATO, Wosao, and Wozang class, work alongside them as dedicated mine hunters. The original Type 082 entered service in 1987, designed around lessons from the earlier Type 312 and Type 058 programs. The improved Type 82-2 is fitted with systems to remotely control up to 3 Type 529 drone minesweepers simultaneously. All Type 082 class vessels also carry mine-laying rails, giving them a dual role. They can clear a lane or seed one. Patrolling the approaches, in diminishing but still real numbers, are the remnants of the Type 037 family. The Hainan and Haiqing class submarine chasers, first introduced in the 1960s as replacements for Soviet SO-1 class vessels, displacing 370 to 400 tons and reaching 28 to 30 knots. Fewer than 50 hulls remain in reserve or training roles as of 2025. Their operational relevance is limited, but they have not left the inventory yet. And then there are the Type 022 Hubei-class fast attack missile boats, roughly 80 inches commission. Each a wave-piercing aluminum catamaran displacing around 220 tons, built for coastal strike at speeds exceeding 36 knots. They are not blue water ships, they are proximity weapons. Armed with 4 to 8 YJ-83 anti-ship missiles, they operate in coordinated squadrons of 8, firing massed salvos, guided by off-platform targeting data from airborne sensors, from other ships, from shore-based radar. In December 2025, 2 Type 022 units were observed, with modified structures, replacing their standard missile bins, suggesting active testing of a new payload configuration. A 220-ton catamaran, quietly being reimagined. Chapter 7. Logistics, the fleet behind the fleet, and what comes next. A navy can only go as far as its fuel and ammunition allow. The plan understood this later than it built its combat power. It is correcting that gap with purpose. 8. Type 903 and Type 903 of Fuji-class replenishment oilers are in service. At 23,000 tons full load, each can simultaneously transfer fuel, ammunition, and stores to 2 warships in a single underway replenishment evolution. They are not glamorous. They are essential. Without them, a Chinese carrier strike group cannot sustain itself at range. With them, it can. 2 Type 901 Shanhu-class fast combat support ships are also in commission, each displacing approximately 45,000 tons. These are the largest logistical vessels in the PLAN, designed specifically to keep pace with high-speed carrier strike groups and replenish a carrier and its escorts simultaneously underway. The same capability took the United States decades to build. China built it in under 10 years. Rounding out the support layer, oceanographic survey ships, satellite and missile tracking vessels, electronic intelligence collection ships, submarine tenders, icebreakers, and dedicated training hulls distributed across all 3 fleets. They do not appear in threat assessments, they appear in every operation. As for what comes after this, the signals are clear. A 4th carrier, notionally designated Type 004, is assessed to be under early construction at Dalian Shipbuilding. Satellite imagery shows a hull taking shape in the same dry dock that built Liaoning and Shandong. The configuration suggests possible nuclear propulsion, a feature previously absent from any Chinese carrier. In December 2025, the U.S. Department of Defense stated that China plans to construct 6 additional carriers by 2035, bringing the total planned carrier fleet to 9 hulls. 1 Type 095 nuclear attack submarine is under early assembly. The first, Type 096, Tang-class ballistic missile submarine, expected to displace between 18,000 and 20,000 tons submerged and carry a significantly enlarged nuclear payload, is reported to be in construction. Service entry for both next-generation submarine classes is projected in the early 2030s. The Office of Naval Intelligence projects China will field 475 battle force ships by 2035. The United States Navy is projected at 305 to 317. The second batch of Type 055 destroyers continues to commission. Type 52D production has not stopped. A next-generation destroyer program is expected to follow. The PLAN is not approaching its ceiling. It is still climbing.